Mustaches and military industrialists, this is internet personality Vangelus, and I'm looking at ThreeZero's DLX Infinity Saga Mk43 Iron Man. That's all the words? Yeah. Provided to me by ThreeZero for review and the low-key herald of something much bigger and bustier. Bustier. That sounds like breasts, confirming that this review video is not for kids. Society dictates that only babies and adults are allowed to know what the breast is. Drawing straight out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which some people, the experts, will turn into the acronym the MCU, DLX Mk43 looks like an Iron's Men to me. I'm not dedicated enough to note any truly granular aesthetic deviance, but I'm pretty sure the only major quarreling point is that ThreeZero is rocking the upper end of the oddly flexible 1/12 action figure scale. Here's an extremely useful size comparison shot to demonstrate and hopefully inform your own decisions if that kind of stuff is incredibly important to you. On the most basic level, though, I think the fit and finish of the piece is on par with the average ThreeZero expectations horizon that exists at this point. You get the Starkian sheen from the paint apps with a dose of die-cast weight nestled within the figure's superstructure, and that sheen is bolstered by some light-up features and functions. You need a screwdriver to fully access the battery slots hidden within the skull and upper body, as well as a quartet of AG1 batteries. You have to press a very raw and tiny switch inside of the helmet to turn on the optic lights, while the arc reactor itself is the on-off switch for its own light. Literally two extremes in the realm of high-end light-up feature access, but the end result is properly illuminating. The main accessories here are a small swathe of hand options, starting off with a requisite pair of fool-punching fists. Hand swaps are a ball-socket wrist pop-and-pop that presents little issue in person and opens the door for 4 additional pairs of choices. Calm and open hands are the first option, a natural pairing with closed fists, as many action figure sommeliers will tell you. After that, you get the classic Iron Man Repulsor blast gropers. Perhaps you notice the sculpted palm lenses on these hands so far. Well, the next 2 pairs have straight-up holes bored in place of those, starting with the exact same Repulsor blast hands now ready to accept blast effects. You get 2 pairs of those blast effects in 2 different lengths, normal and a bit longer, and they just wedge in a little ham-fistedly or ham-palmedly into the aforementioned hole sockets. The final pair of hands look almost identical to the prior set, except for slightly straighter fingers, very slightly. You can barely notice unless you really stare at it. I believe these are meant to be more flight pose than blast pose, but don't feel bad if you can barely tell the difference in person. To further support flight posing, or posing in general, DLX Iron Man 43 includes a solid display stand whose articulated arm even has adjustable screws for loosening or tightening. Once you rip Tony's butt plate off, you just jam the arm into his anal socket and take to the skies. It doesn't feel like a rock-tight fit when you stick it in, but I've yet to have Iron Man come loose unintentionally, so his internal buttock clench appears to be absolutely sufficient. As one final cherry on top, you can pop and swap the Mk43's forearm plates to deploy some tiny man-humbler rockets. These entirely involve pegs and holes, very small pegs and holes, so act with care and perhaps have a gentle prying tool at ready. ThreeZero DLX articulation on their robots has been real good, but how is it going to be on a man clad in so much armor he basically looks like a robot? It's completely different, except it turns out really well. It's mostly joints you would expect, double ball sockets involved at the top and bottom of a neck, full-scale shoulder articulation with double hingy shoulder pads to get out of the way of things, and at the base of it you have another joint within the torso that can also butterfly forwards or upwards, bicep swivel with a double elbow, a ball socket wrist for that swap and pop, but also offers a lot of waggle. Mid-torso stuff that, you know, is a way that a guy can turn, it's a way that a guy can very slightly turn at the waist, but a lot more of it's going to be up here. There's sort of 2 joints at work. And then obviously those joints are able to do a little bit of tilt and play here and there. There's going to be segmented robo-porn going on while you do the thing several times and really enjoy the interlocking layers of it all. deliciously. You can just chill out like this with this centipede action for quite a bit of time, but we got to keep moving. The pec plates can shift forwards on little double hinges to make more room for pulling the arms forward to shoot stuff with palm lasers. And down here in the hips, you've got basic hip motion, but stuff bumps together when you try to move it forward. However, you can hinge this thing down to make room for that hinge to kick up, and then you can go outwards to do some splits. The ball socket wrists for the fists, since they are the stock installation out of the box, it's not impossible to bump them off of the socket now and then when you're messing around with this a little bit too eagerly, as I am. But if all of this is not good enough motion, you can also slide that down to get a real high kick going on, which looks alright from the angles you're not technically supposed to look at it from when you do such a thing for the sake of articulation. So that mechanism is, I think, pretty darn clever, and it's just it's a big metal cylinder in there, which is satisfying to look upon. There's some double hinged knees with deploying undersculpt. There's no compression on the back of the thigh to make room for it, but the sculpt, I think, looks fine when you do this. And that stuff is all absolutely sick. There's a toe joint. There's a little flap for the ankle on the front and a flap for the ankle on the back to open up room. But then the ankle itself is a pair of ball socket joints. It's a barbell ball socket joint. And that's it. And it's not loose, but it's not super tight. And that leads to the big moment of trepidation for this guy, because demonstrably, I put him down and he can stand, but sometimes you put him down just a little bit wrong, and he can't stand. These are not confident ankles, these are trepidatious ankles. And I don't mind it so much now that it's been, quite a few months of me messing around with this thing, and I didn't really have to learn a language of how to put him down on a surface. Often if I put him down and he starts tipping, I just sort of grip and wiggle. But I'm not a fan of this ball sockets down here thing, because there's die cast all throughout this dude, and the ball socket double barbell seems to be a metal piece, but regardless, I really wish that this had been some beefier hinges. I know that might have limited some of the articulation a bit, but for an Iron Man, I think that is okay. I think stability is more important to me myself. I say as I was not expecting to have to comment more than once on that symptom. And there is something about this also, which is that you get a stand. So ostensibly you can just keep Tony here on a stand if you are getting nervous about this. Like, for all the number of times I've put him down and he's stayed upright, I would say that you might want to keep him on a stand when you put him into long-term shelf display for reasons perhaps illustrated several seconds ago. Keeping him on a stand, it means you can do flight poses, you can do zap-zap boot thruster things, but like, I really like the cherry of solidity of being able to just plant a DLX robot down and not have to think at all about it falling over. And it's sort of a bummer to me about the DLX Iron Man design. Also, he didn't have like a stand sticking off of him when he was like out there in the Ouroboros fight, you know, taking it to Darkseid. And imagine those scenes if he had like this entire thing hanging off of his butt. Maybe they would have been, actually no, that would have been pretty damn cool. I take it all back, perfect toy. The too long didn't watch on this piece is that it's a very solid and playable piece. Worth your time if you're into its version of 1/12 scaling, with the caveat that the ankles might oppose your displays if you refuse to use the included stand. And hey, that kind of personality is the same sort who would put in the work to find a too long didn't watch segment hidden in right after the articulation demonstration of this very video, so feel heard! Feel seen! Otherwise, this feels at home under ThreeZero's DLX label, though I'll always lean Transformers in that realm due to what scientists refer to as wholly objective personal bias. Granted, I think Cybertronian ankles in DLX are strictly better, but I may just be missing something with these ball socket Stark ankles. They hold solidly more often than I expect, but when I get too confident, Tony tips over. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and there is absolutely a very large sequel to this release that will appear in my review production timeline. I just need to make sure I have enough batteries. Many thanks to all of my personal brain battery chargers out there who have thrown in some direct support via Patreon, YouTube membership, coffee, and all the other means of injecting some lithium into my cerebral cells. Legally.